Hey, we haven't spoken in a while, but we need to have some update on what's going on. Today we're going to, I guess, chat a little bit about the app that we're building and also discuss a few things about how do we actually think of ideas once again, but now more practically, because as the first app is getting to its launch phase, we can start working on some new projects.
Yeah, and we've, even if we haven't met any viewers in a while, we've actually met in person.
Yeah, that was fun. So maybe we should have recorded something like as a live kind of thing together.
Yeah.
So the news, I guess the main news is that the Shopify app is ready. So it's actually ready to be launched. And I'm going to do a separate video on the actual process of submitting it to Shopify. I have found once again like a small issue that I think I need to solve before actually submitting it, which is the GDPR compliance. So basically what I have been solving on the last stage of rebuilding the app was the fact that whenever the store actually uninstalls the app, it triggers some URL of the app and it has to be deleted from the database, or not deleted, but like soft deleted, so that when it installs again, it goes kind of through installation process and permissions once again. With the GDPR compliance, there actually has to be a way to just completely remove the email of the owner of the store, or just like any data associated with that. So it's going to be probably like a small add-on, a feature to just have that working, as well as just the regular uninstall of the app. But the main thing is that it's working, and theoretically, I guess it could be launched just like outside Europe whenever the GDPR does work. Now it's the matter, I think, of maybe a couple of hours of just making one more API method that would just be deleting the data.
Yeah, getting closer.
Yeah, so I think that the submission will happen just anytime this week, actually, because that's kind of straightforward way right now. So we have to think of what would we do next, right? So we had a few ideas of very different apps that we could launch, and not only Shopify, but a good way to proceed would actually be just to have some method of like how do we actually pick ideas, right? So we had maybe like 10 of them, and we cannot do all 10 at the same time, and the capacity that we'll have would be also quite limited.
Yeah, and I'm sure there will come more ideas, and what we've decided also is so we have Ivan that's been here before, and we will probably have another developer. So in our little team, we've decided to keep doing these type of projects, and we will probably have more ideas coming. So what we're thinking is to set up some framework to quickly evaluate and validate ideas, first from like the product business perspective, before we then talk to the developers and maybe do more of a technical evaluation of them, right?
Yeah, we went through a few ideas last week. We actually touched upon the AI generated content a lot, like the images, the text. The more you go around it, the more it looks like kind of an interesting business to build, actually, around AI generated content for e-commerce or for content creators, for many things like as these helpers. But the bigger of a project that becomes, so like if we would have a capacity of a developer for let's say like a week, then this is not something that we would probably be able to launch that fast, and we could test something else in the meantime. Yeah. So I guess we just need to go through how would we prioritize them. So I think like the latter stage would probably be the just the technical evaluation, right, and the resources that we'll need. But initially, I think we could just maybe use a simple table where we would list the ideas and think of maybe like a few metrics or a few maybe even non-numeric parameters that would help us kind of order them, right?
But maybe we need to start one step before even. So what is the target with each or with any of them, basically? So what are we maximizing for? So you mentioned like it might take long time, so then maybe short development time is one factor, but yeah, as you said, that maybe we can have a feel for that, but we need the developers input on that. But are we then maximizing for we discussed before, like something we need ourselves, or should it be revenue potential, or should it be how easy it is to launch, etc. Have you had any thoughts or assumptions on that one? Because I think from that then we can break it into these parameters maybe.
Yeah, so I thought about the list of topics. I was thinking of so we can go through if the project actually solves any of our needs. Like if we need some tool to optimize our own sales process, let's say like for the development agency part, or if we need it to like just solve some issue that we have, then we can look into whether it has some available distribution channel which would be like practically free, which I'm thinking either, building the app for some ecosystem like Shopify, Squarespace, Trello, Notion templates, like anything that would actually give us some distribution right away inside the platform. So it could be solving our need, but it could also become available for others to use, either for free or like as a paid version. And then maybe we can go through like if there is any potential market size for that we can think of, like how many users are within this ecosystem, how many do we think are actually in need of something like that, and then like is there any existing competition, which in the beginning could be an indicator that this is actually an interesting way of connecting to the audience. But then if there's like 20 developers doing the same thing, then probably this is just already occupied. And then like the needed resources and time to launch as kind of the metric that could help us just finalize the decision if we want to launch something quickly or if we want to build something big. There would be probably nothing right or wrong in this table, but maybe something interesting, but for the opposite reasons. Maybe some like I was thinking of something like that.
So you mean there's not like one overarching target here? It doesn't have to solve our needs, but if it solves our needs, then maybe something else is not as important. It's more a subjective.
Exactly. So I was thinking like from having these parameters just like listed in front of us for all the ideas, we could maybe mark that there is a few of them that would apply at the same time. Like there is an existing market for that and it solves our needs and it's like easy to build. Then maybe even if the idea is not that interesting, we could go ahead and do it if it's fast and would do the trick. And then maybe we could look at that and see if we think any of those, like which of those are just interesting and which do we think just suck because they are neither of any. And then we just pick the ones that we think are interesting from the list. And I expect them to be opposite in a way, because something would be easy to build, but maybe not as exciting. Something would be bigger. We're not picking like one that we'll be doing forever. So we could just build someone next to see how we structure the process with the developers' spare time to have them involved into that, and then maybe build something bigger later.
Yeah, true. So I've used like this ICE framework before, both in like product and marketing. So impact, confidence, and ease of implementation, right? So you score each of them and get some average. And this would be a little bit similar, but with more of our custom and subjective thoughts, which I think makes sense actually. Maybe we could just have like instead of like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, we could have like a traffic light system, and if it's all green, then it makes sense to do that one. But if some are green, some are yellow, and then we can more weigh them against each other.
I think this is kind of the same, but if we're speaking of this ICE, then like impact would be solving our needs and the market size, and then that would be kind of both. And it's kind of hard to compare, right? Because we may just need a tool that would just simplify our own work process by a lot, and then the goal to build a project would not be making money out of it like straight away. That could be the case if that's something like super easy and fast to implement. And
then actually the distribution channel, needed resources, and time to launch is sort of ease of implementation. I would say maybe we should have some to cover the confidence part there, like because we could like judge the market size to be big and the competition to be low, but maybe we're not super sure about it, or maybe that doesn't matter in this case.
I think that makes sense, actually, because I think that's, let's say, market size and the competition are actually those that would probably be somehow estimated. So the needed resources, this is something we can directly evaluate because we know how to do it, like based on what we want to build. Same with time to launch. The fact if the solution solves our needs or availability of the distribution channels, those are kind of like facts. So maybe with distribution it's harder because like maybe there is a big ecosystem, but your app is just like not needed. so it will not have the distribution, but market size and competition would be based on some judgment, maybe based on some data, maybe based on some existing competitors and availability of their data. But we could use competition as some score. Exactly. So the rest can be not score. It can be like some description and as a traffic light at the end. But the confidence we could just mark as score and have just an extra point for us to think about.
Yeah, and there's one thing I'm missing also, like from the reason we ended up in a lot of these AI generation stuff was that Ivan had built a Telegram bot to generate photos, right? Which at least I've been playing with since then. So I think somewhere like how interesting the project is should also come into this, since it should still be something that we're doing sort of as a side project and maybe to learn something, or it should not be something that feels boring, right? I think there should be some level of fun and interesting stuff in it.
I think it would go into solving our needs, right? In some way. So it would be either in serving our needs, or it would be connected just to ease of implementation if it was interesting to someone of us and we built something before, like this case with Ivan. So he was just interested in digging into that, and now he has some small code base that we could just reuse, right?
Yeah, but there could be, I mean, things like that doesn't really connect to our needs and is new, but it's still like it feels very fun, very interesting to learn about.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I guess also most of the ideas will come from something that we think is interesting or so. But I'm also thinking like maybe we can come up with something that we think is super interesting, but that would be boring to actually build, and then we would end up like the guys not prioritizing it and nothing coming out of it. So if we're not aligned on like that it's something that's fun to do or needs to be done, then I think we can have issues in executing.
I'm not against, I guess
that's maybe more of a discussion in the last end also, like if someone just I don't feel like doing this, then we don't do it. It's almost more like a veto.
Yeah, maybe it would just be actually on the earlier stage, like if it just like sucks as an idea and like with zero interest from anyone, then it wouldn't show up in the list of ideas to evaluate. Because someone has to be passionate about it to try to fight for it, like between us, to have it built. Otherwise, it wouldn't just show up there.
Yeah, that's true.
Because like one of the ideas, so this Shopify app that I will be submitting, this is the one that is used for showing the banners. And we were discussing an idea of showing like a sticky call to action on the site, which is useful for mobile, where you just can have something under your thumb. And this is something that would be just easy to build based on the previous app, because that would be essentially the same. It can have everything the same apart from a few settings on the backend, and the actual way of showing the banners on the site. So instead of putting an image somewhere at the top of the store, it can create an overlay that would stick to the bottom of the page and show it based on some conditions that we actually already have. So like the targeting by URL or things like that, we can just use everything that exists already.
Yeah, that's true.
And like since I have built the first one, like no actual developer would be needed to build that second one.
Yeah, if you manage to get this one through.
Exactly. That's like the toughest part, because after submission, I'm not really expecting it to go through. I don't know like what would be the issues, but I think something would go wrong and we would need to fix it.
And that's the point now also, right? So we started on this before we started working with Ivan and so on, and didn't have any developer resources, but now the idea is for each of us to do what we are best at to be quicker and create a better product in the end.
True, yeah. That should help. Yeah, so I guess we can stick with that structure of going through a few points of the ideas, and then we can just populate it with ideas that we have in the list, and maybe go with Ivan through them as well to briefly evaluate on the tech side as well, like how much would it cost us to build the things in terms of the timing.
Yeah, I think so. I think we should. So we have a list, but now we came up with some new ones just last week. So to get them all in there and do some, I guess the market size, distribution and competition are like the ones that takes a bit more input. The rest are more we know the answers to.
Yeah, exactly. And basically with these AI generated contents, the thing is that like it would depend a lot on how you frame it and package it, because with pure e-commerce, that's easy. That can be like Shopify and like online store CMSs. But with this type of content, it could be anything from helping creators within WordPress to helping online stores to build some like product data, or to, well, there's a lot of spaces where the distribution could be different for kind of a similar product of what people would be thinking.
Yeah, and that I was actually thinking that because in a project we're doing now, we're creating a lot of user stories to figure out the different needs. So maybe that should actually be a requirement for our projects also, that it should be one simple user story, because that should limit the scope of the project by itself. So we should be able to explain the project or the app with one user story.
Yeah, that's true. And we're I think with the first idea struggling a little bit to name them, because it's easy to name, but then you go into describing like how that should actually work and how would it look like. But like a simple user story would just cover the general part.
Yeah, exactly. And it also makes sure we don't go too complex, because we want to keep this simple, right? So it should solve one problem for one type of user, basically, and not much more than that.
If we would think of something like more complex and many problems, that could be just many smaller apps or services that we would just build over time, which would be much easier to even implement.
So yeah, then that should probably be the first step. Describe them, all the ideas, with a single user story, and then evaluate them.
Yeah. I think that's kind of it, right? So the next time, I guess, I will be launching the Shopify app itself to the store and going through just the submission process, because it's actually very easy. It's like a couple of steps, but there's a long form of filling out all the information about it. And then the next step would be either some feedback from Shopify or the more detailed discussion of what we would do next, what we would build next.
Right. Yeah, they're usually quite quick, especially if you fail on something basic, then they catch it with the automated tests even.
Exactly. So they say it should take about a week, but they first run through some technical tests, and the response can be within like a day or two. And if that's fine, then they would probably have some testing users for that.
Yeah. Cool.
Then that's it. Let's see how many views or listens would that be. I do have a message to the podcast listeners. So we have two listeners that were listening to like these episodes in the format of the podcast. Please leave any type of review or feedback or anything on the platform that you're listening to. How do you find it? Who you are? Just very, very curious, because we were focusing mainly on YouTube, but and YouTube is kind of growing super slowly for us, which is normal for the beginning, I guess. But there is someone on the podcasting platforms as well, on Apple Podcasts